everybody. This is my first live into this group, I believe. I keep talking about doing these lives because this is all really new to me. I feel like a dinosaur sometimes. So it's a fun experience. I can't say it's not. So I'm really riding that wave of elation and thrill and discovery and adventure with every new experience that I do. So I want to start this masterclass also first by just thanking Shannon because she's been a wonderful guide on this journey. Even if I'm a bit of a less interactive participant, I'm always lurking and watching. And really, this experience with this book and all the people involved has been so transformative for me. And it's also really pushed me to my own, rise to my own challenges and discover myself in new ways. One of which is doing something like this, which is a masterclass. So we're going to get started. I had talked in another video about doing this PowerPoint that I wasn't going to be able to share. My dog is going crazy upstairs. So I'll excuse all the racket upstairs. We just got rid of her cage and I was like, I just realized I can't put her away. So she's upstairs in the bedroom. So if you hear her, that's her. Hi, Chelsea. So I'm going to use a bit of the PowerPoint I created as a guide, but I am going to talk as well. The name of my masterclass today is like the phoenix we rise. And that's a phrase that I've really enjoyed using. I really resonate with it very deeply. It's representative of the journey I feel I've walked. I've risen so many times. I feel in different ways, and I've overcome many different challenges, as I know every person in their life has their own challenges that they're working on overcoming or rising above and shifting for themselves. So for me, this has been a symbol that I've really connected with. The story of the phoenix is the story of this long-lived eternal bird who lived in the Garden of Eden in paradise and had a lifespan of 1,000 years, and every time that lifespan would come to an end, it would dissolve, burst into flames, become ashes, and then out of the ashes a new egg would be created, and it would hatch from there. So rising out of our own ashes, the phoenix represents transformation, life and death, rebirth, and overcoming new challenges, which is what I feel happens to us when we're going through life. You don't stay the same person forever. You change continually, hopefully, and grow through those challenges that we face in our lives. So a little bit about me. I'm an intuitive mentor and a life coach. I'm also an editor and a writing coach. And I feel that the two elements of my life, the love of books in the book world. I was a children's librarian for 25 years. And now I work in the world of editing. And mentoring and coaching are very similar. They're very similar practices, because when you work with an author on their writing, most of the time what an author writes comes from their heart. It comes from their soul. It's their story that they want to tell, whether it's about their life, whether it's fiction, whether it's about something that interests them. This is something that comes from within them, and they usually have this urge or this desire to tell this story. Well, like, life is a story. Our lives are stories. I feel like my life has been broken into several volumes, and each can stand on its own almost. And so when you're when you're mentoring and coaching someone with their life, you're really helping them through and helping them develop their life story. So both of those areas for me are very close to my heart, and I love being able to work with people in either area and, still live in the world of stories, which for me is always what speaks to me. So that's who I am. I've talked to you a bit about why the phoenix. So for the phoenix, when we're going through difficult times, sometimes, at least the way I feel when I've gone through emotions that are really hard for me to cope with, and they're overwhelming, that's another way that that metaphor works, because it feels like you're sitting in this fiery, flaming, space that you can't seem to find your way out of, and you're being burned by it because it hurts, and it hurts to feel certain ways, and it takes you over, and it's almost all you can think about. That's what I call fire sitting. So fire sitting is that time when you're in those difficult moments. You have to sit with it, really. People have different coping methods sometimes, which is either to ignore it or avoid it and not talk about it, or explode with it all over everybody else. But really, none of those ways are going to bring any kind of either healing or resolution or advancement with those feelings, right? Those are dysfunctional patterns. That is a bit of what I'm going to talk about today also. And so what I call fire sitting is really sitting with those difficult feelings. And I mean, I've said to friends of mine that, I've sent them texts of like, I'm sitting in a bonfire today. It burns. It's hard. The thing about it is that you do need to sit in it. And I'm not talking about it in the way of wallowing. I'm not talking about it in the way of, bringing yourself down around it. But in the way of, it's calling on you to be honest with yourself about how you're feeling. It's calling on you to be compassionate with yourself, to say that this is how I'm feeling today about something, and that's okay. I'm allowed to feel that way. It hurts. It's hard. But at a certain point, we need to bring ourselves to a point where, okay, so why am I really feeling this way? Why is this feeling so overwhelming? Is there anything deeper that I need to learn about it? Or what is the solution, and what is the way out of this feeling? How can I process this so that, or how can I even see it in a different light, or see it in a perspective, or what actions can I take to help move myself through these feelings? Because, fire is also, not a permanent thing. It eats up the fuel, it burns things away, and then it tends to peter out most of the time, right? So, you need to, when we're fire sitting, remember that it's burning away the surface of how we're feeling and allowing the depth of it to come through. And then that's part of the metaphor also, which is it burns away, what is old and what doesn't serve you, and brings you into a new space, into a new strength, a new growth, to move forward and soar above the flames. That's how I see it. So, when we're working on overcoming, I'm focusing on today, I think, dysfunctional patterns, for ourselves, and how we process and how we behave, because our emotions lead to behavior, right? Thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to thoughts, feelings lead to actions. So, our feelings and our thoughts tend to end up being manifested outward in our behavior. So there's a main 3-step process, I would say, when we're looking at overcoming dysfunctional patterns. And I speak, from experience. I spent a lot of my life trapped in dysfunctional patterns, revisiting the same kind of behavior that wasn't helpful, wasn't productive, hurt others, hurt myself, until I came to a place where I understood that this isn't getting me anywhere, and it's not allowing me to show up as the person that I want to be. So I'm going to do a bit of a general overview of all of this for the masterclass. So the 3 main areas we want to look at is start with self-awareness. Before you can change your behavior, you really have to start to be aware of yourself. Emotional regulation, which sounds, clinical, but really emotions are huge. Emotions don't define us, but they can control us sometimes. So we need to learn how to it doesn't mean cut out emotions, cut off your emotions at all. It means to regulate them so that you can work with them and navigate them. And then moving into creating new habits, or thinking of new habits that will help shift your behavior. And then it becomes a self-feeding cycle that you can work with to help yourself move forward and heal. So self-awareness isn't the big action. It won't have necessarily a big impact on the immediate actions that you're taking, but it really is the first step. because when you're caught in these patterns, your mind has been wired to behave and react in certain way to certain, and I really don't love using the word trigger. I have yet to find a better word as an editor. Words are very important to me, and I'm still struggling. It's triggers just feels like the best word to describe it. I just don't like how it's been used lately. But we need to have an awareness around what those triggers are for us and what they do to us. So it starts with when you even catch yourself in the first, in a pattern, is not even trying to change it yet, right? It's just starting to understand your feelings and understand what you're really feeling in this moment. You can get mad that whatever, your sister took your sweater, and it can be about that, but sometimes it can be deeper than that, and it can be more about how you feel disrespected because she took it without asking and then didn't take care of it, and it's a deeper issue for you. And I'm using that example. I see that as a regular issue in my house between two preteen and teenage girls. But it's understanding your feelings, identifying them, and being able to put a name to them. And that starts to get us into the area of emotional intelligence, where feelings have four main categories of angry, sad, scared, and happy. And most people can kind of identify that. I'm angry right now. I'm sad about this. But there are so many layers to each feeling, right? So, when you're angry, you can be frustrated. You can be aggravated. You can gosh, of course I'm blanking on all of the other levels of anger right now. You can feel disrespected. You can feel indignant about something. You can feel trespassed. You can feel hurt. Sad also has many, like there's disappointment. There's a feeling of loss. There's feeling of rejection under sadness. And a lot of those overlap. Sometimes you can feel rejected by someone or about something and get angry instead of feeling sad. So there are often many layers to unpack around the larger umbrellas of each feeling, and that in itself sometimes is work, because we're just so used to reacting in one certain way and identifying in one certain way. So the self-awareness of when you're in the pattern and watching yourself in the reaction and stopping to ask yourself, okay, well, what do I really feel about this? You're monitoring yourself. You're acting as your own self-observer, both physically and emotionally, right? Is to just pay attention to what's going on for you, is using that time for reflection and being aware and seeing even sometimes repetitive patterns, right? When this happens, I always react that way. I know for me, when I get interrupted, because I like to talk, when someone interrupts me and doesn't let me finish a sentence, that's still something I'm working on, right? And my reaction is anger and frustration. The feeling underneath that, though, which I've learned, is that I really feel unheard. I feel not important. I feel like what I have to say doesn't matter. And that's a very deep feeling, right? That goes very down to my core when we're talking about something as simple as being interrupted, right? And when you're having a conversation and someone cuts you off, that's something I've had to work on very hard, not to have a very angry reaction. And then that stops the whole conversation too, right? Can't continue once I'm pissed at you because you've interrupted me. So it changes the energy. So I've had to learn how to either interject and say, please let me finish what I'm saying, and to learn that I don't have to assign such deep meaning to the person's action and not gaslighting or trivializing how I feel about it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that person's, that's what they're trying to do, and they don't consider what I'm saying and they don't care. So that's what I mean about being aware, observing, seeing the patterns, the same reactions happening again and again, and trying to explore what is really behind them. And you can't expect to be able to shift anything until you really start to have an awareness around what's going on for you. So that brings me to emotional regulation. that clinical, that awful word. When I first heard it, my ego backed up, right? And I was just like, what do you mean regulation? How do I regulate my emotions when my emotions aren't important? I'm supposed to, keep them quiet. I'm supposed to just tamp myself down. I'm a very fiery, expressive person. No, that's not what it means at all. What it means is, we've learned many patterns of behavior from early childhood as we've grown up, right? We've watched our parents, we've watched our teachers, we've watched people around us. As children, these patterns of behavior are ingrained in us, and that's how our minds are wired to react to certain situations. But they're not always healthy. I grew up in a household where, explosive rage was part of how people behaved. And then the other side of it was not talking about how you're feeling. So that was very hard for me to learn. I was pretty dysfunctional in most relationships up until maybe the last few years, I would say, really. The last 10 years, my awareness began, my understanding, and it's been a long journey for me to understand exactly what these behaviors are, why I'm doing them, where they come from, and what I need to do to heal and change them. So taking your emotions to a level that you can navigate and manage without making them, allowing them to be destructive. So instead of looking at emotions as something that it's a tidal wave that just overwhelms you, that's what happens to me. And I've had to learn that emotions are signals. Emotions really are signals. You are not your emotion. They're signals of information for you to learn from. I'm feeling this about it. Okay. So right now my initial reaction is to feel this intense anger. Well, why am I feeling such intense anger over this situation? And how do I navigate it so that I don't explode it over everyone else? You can express anger or sadness without it having to take over your body and the room and the people around you. That the extreme of your expression isn't necessarily a validation of how badly you feel. That's not the connection for it, right? Just because you can scream and yell, or just because you can cry for 3 hours, that's not the validation of how bad you feel. That's just an uncontrolled reaction that makes you lose sometimes some rational thought, the ability to navigate through, the ability to then see what information that's telling us. So it's a process, and it's not easy every time. And anything I want you to know, anything I'm talking about, I'm trying to remember who said that to me. It's possible it was Jenna Madden, who I love and work with. Her, I think it was her that said it's progress, not perfection. And that's the thing about it, right? There's no perfection. The journey, I've learned, there's no end to the journey. There's always something to learn. There's always ongoing processing going on. So it's not about being able to expect you to be able to hold, change everything instantly. And all of a sudden, if you have a bad day, well, then, there was something wrong with you. No, we're all human, and these are all different processes. We're learning about ourselves. We're learning about our needs, and we're learning about the things that are important to us and how to best manage them in a way that's healthy for us. So that's what I mean by emotional regulation, is learning to navigate your feelings instead of being controlled by them. And then, having to backtrack or to, walk your way back out of those feelings or recover from the extreme of those feelings, because that's not healthy either. It's a push on your adrenal system, on your endocrine system, and high stress reactions only create more damage in your body. So that's the next thing I want to talk about a little bit more, which is emotional dysregulation, right? So when you're emotionally dysregulated, most of us don't even realize it. It's something that took me a long time to understand, that I was thinking that, my physical issues and my health issues were entirely removed and not connected in any way to the emotional issues that I was having. And it took me a long time to accept and understand that they really are directly connected. So emotions can become physical sensations, become physical manifestations in our body. High negative emotions, you can get a tight chest, short of breath, flushed face, adrenaline rush, heavy breathing, energy rushes through your body that you need to move, and that in itself creates stressors in your body. What's happening is you're pumping out adrenaline, you're pumping out cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and you're doing damage, like long-term damage to your body by having those kinds of physical reactions, by allowing your emotions to take over your body that way. And then your emotions become connected to those reactions. So the minute you feel that way, your whole body goes into overdrive because it's, well, this is what my body's supposed to do to keep me safe and to be protected and to be on guard when I'm feeling this way. And so it becomes a perpetuating cycle and an unhealthy connection for us to maintain when we're, it also takes away the thought through how we're feeling, and often things can kind of get out of hand in terms of how we're processing or seeing things because we get on this roll. So it creates sometimes cyclical thoughts, pattern thoughts that keep you focused on one, or assuming the worst, highly negative spirals that don't help anybody, and the person that they hurt the most is often you, and sometimes the people that you spew it out onto. Also, right? And then you have to go and repair those relationships. So those reactions become out of proportion, they become overwhelming, and that is a part of emotional dysregulation. So when we have those emotional reactions and we feel that inner conflict with ourselves, usually that's an indication that there are unmet needs somewhere. And unmet needs are deeper core soul needs or reasons for these reactions that often go really down to our childhood. They often deal with our ego, and they're things that we sometimes don't even realize. So, they can also be linked to traumatic pasts, disturbing situations, traumatic events in our lives. So, like I said before, sometimes taking your sister's t-shirt without asking, right, will lead to an extreme reaction because it makes you feel disrespected. That's an unmet need. Being interrupted makes you feel unheard. That's an unmet need. So the surface argument or the surface reason is I just don't like being interrupted. But really the deeper need below that is to be heard, is to know that what I have to say is valued. So that's all part of, the emotional regulation is an outcome of the self-awareness and the reflection that we can do for ourselves when we're feeling those feelings. And once we have some of those answers, that's when we can start looking at creating new habits, because just like the body gets connected to the emotions, so the emotions create a physical reaction as well, and they kind of tend to go hand in hand. The same thing can be done or said when we're trying to heal from those dysfunctional patterns and rise above, right? Shannon. So what we can do is create new habits that change behavior in those moments, and slowly with time create new connections in our minds and our brains that will relate emotions to different actions. And it takes a long time. It's really something that we have to have a lot of patience with ourselves for. So, a new habit, even just to start, is after a strong emotional reaction or sitting in the fire and really feeling so much discomfort. A new habit we can create is even just reflecting back. What was that about? Was it really because there were crumbs on the counter and the toaster was left out? Was it really because you didn't tell me you were going shopping and I wanted to go with you? It's the reflection back on what was it really about and how could I have handled this differently? And sometimes just asking ourselves those questions is really the first start to new habits. And it also will encompass the self-awareness and the emotional regulation at the same time. You're pulling all of that in together to make a new habit of self-reflection. And it takes a lot of self-honesty. It takes a lot of courage to be honest with yourself and say, that wasn't appropriate response in proportion. I'm not really feeling this way. I don't want to admit it, but what was really underneath it was something else entirely. That's a slow process because that's a process with ourselves, right? So we take it slow. We try to do it. Sometimes you can't do it every time, but as long as the intention is there and the forward motion is there, that's what brings us through. Out of the fire, we can rise out of the ashes. And when it comes to the body, that has also been a very big issue for me because my body jumps into action after having lived so many years in survival mode and in dysfunctional patterns. My system still to this day reacts. So I work hard on taking really deep breaths. I work hard on calming my nervous system when I'm not upset as well. So I'm very conscious and intentional about appropriate rest for myself, meditation or yoga. You have to find the things that are good for you, but your body needs to learn that those emotions don't need to send it into the heights of adrenaline and survival reaction, that you can feel those emotions without your body being a part of it. And that also takes a long time to rewire, but as long as you start to put the process in and know that, okay, so I got really, really angry, I was out of breath, and my blood pressure was up, or my adrenaline was rising, all of that, you feel all that running through your body, you go and take a few breaths, or you go and walk it out, or you lie down. You have to find the things that work best for you, but since it's a body-mind connection, you have to approach both the body and the mind. So those are different processes to work. You know what I do sometimes, actually, which works the best for me, is a body scan. It's a body scan. So it's a type of meditation that I find very powerful. It takes maybe about 5 minutes. And you lie down and you start focusing in awareness either on your feet or your head. You can start from either direction. And very slowly, you in your mind, feel your toes. I usually start with my feet. Without moving them, have an awareness of my toes, the shape of them. Are they cold? Are they hot? Do I feel the socks on them? Are they bare? Do I feel the air on them? And then slowly, very slowly moving up each part of your body from your toes to your feet, to your ankles, to your shins, to your knees. Very slowly, taking a few moments to feel that awareness of your body. And then often, either by the time I get to my stomach, I sometimes fall asleep, frankly, because it relaxes me so much, which is sometimes what we need. Either that, or by the time I get to my head, I have such a rush of positive energy flowing through me. And I feel so energized that all of that negative stress energy that I was feeling has washed away, and I have a clearer mind, and I can look back on how I was feeling and learn to identify it and really navigate through it a little better. So those are some kinds of little habits that you can start to take for yourself in your process through shifting these these patterns into new behaviors, into more healthier relationships. So like I said, body scans. So sometimes journaling helps. Everybody says journaling, but it really does work. You can use journaling for reflective, brainstorming ideas of what might have worked, and continue with your either meditation, reflections. There's inner child work, which is a huge topic all on its own that I'm not going to address today, but that has been incredibly impactful because often those unmet needs that are really deep inside us are connected to the inner child, that little child inside of us that may be stuck in the 3-year-old age or the 6-year-old age or the 8-year-old age, feeling those very core feelings. So there's an exploration that needs to go on of how to unpack those feelings and address them, right? And heal them. And inner child work often also includes reparenting, so that we become us now, the safe adult in our mind's eye for the inner child that's still inside of us, that's needing something, whatever your inner child still needs. Security, assurance, love, recognition, and we can reparent and become that for ourselves, and that's another process for healing. So I'm gonna just finish all that up. That is, in a nutshell, in a very short nutshell, years and years and years for me of work, and a little bit of what I do with my clients and what I hope to share with the world, because I really believe that it's so important. People have so much of their own journey to explore. I know that there are so many people out there who are looking for ways to heal themselves, and there are many different ways, and different ways work for, there's a different way for everybody. You kind of need to make it your own, but having some guidance along the way helps, right? So that's me. I can guide and help you along the way, and I'm happy to do it. That's really a sole purpose for me. So I want to leave you with reminding you to be patient. Healing takes a long time. So we have to be patient with ourselves, be kind to ourselves, be compassionate with ourselves, right? And always remember what your goals are, why you're working to heal and grow, and don't give up. Remember that sitting in the flames it burns, it hurts, it's hard, but it's the most important thing that you can do for yourself. It builds your strength, and it builds your courage, right? Courage, strength, honesty, self-honesty, self-examination. That's what it all calls on you to do, to step up, so that once all that doesn't serve you falls away into ashes, you can rise above the flames and soar into a new transformative life. So I thank everybody for watching. This is wonderful. I've had the best experience myself. I really think this is so much fun. Thank you again. Please buy the book, and I hope you have a great week this week. You can find all of my links to reach me at the end of my chapter, my website and Facebook, or message me, and I'll share with you how to reach me. And I hope you enjoy the rest of this week. These are amazing women sharing incredible experiences and insights and wisdom. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, everybody.